Rayman is a bizarre creature. A limbless, humanoidish person. In the original game, he was part of a limbless species, but in Rayman Origins, Rayman's more unique and was created by Batilla the Fairy and her nymph sisters from Lums, which honestly are described as light energy, but they sometimes look like insects or little fairies. I'm not opening that can of worms today, but just know these were all used to create Rayman, and that the reason he's limbless is because they lost a bag of Lums, so they were short some when they made him. And yes, I'm aware the real answer was hardware limitations at the time of Rayman's creation. You don't need to point that out to me. Anyways, today I want to talk about Rayman's limbs. How far can he throw them? Why can he even control them in the first place? And is there a limit to the distance? Or even crazier, is Rayman not limbless at all? Let's get into the nitty gritty. This is Overthinking It. Let's start by looking at what abilities Rayman displays with his limbs. Generally, he can use his limbs like any other normal creature could. He can walk, run, jump, grab things, all the basics. Rayman also demonstrates the ability to throw his fists, and if he winds it up, he can throw it with more force and a bit farther. And then it flies back to him into its normal position. We can assume this applies to all his limbs. Now the mystery, how are these connected to his body? Let's rule out this answer right away. Rayman's magnetic. We can safely say he's not. Someone might think this, but the way magnets behave, his limbs wouldn't be floating off his body. That would require two magnetic sources pushing against each other, like if Rayman had another body floating next to it, then his hand could be floating. It could potentially explain why it comes back when Rayman throws his fist, but wouldn't explain why it locks back into floating in this specific area here. And also, if he threw it with enough force, couldn't he break the magnetic field and his hand would just land somewhere until he got close enough to pick it back up? I don't think magnets are the answer. Moving past magnets, what about Rayman creating his own little gravity well? If Rayman's torso generated its own gravity, it could keep his hands and feet floating around it. But again, we run into problems. The gravity well would start sucking in things that get close to it. This would wreak havoc on the Glade of Dreams, unless Rayman can control it? If he could do that, it would explain why he's able to do a lot of what he can with his limbs, and how Lums can just be sucked into him as he gets close. However, Rayman demonstrates the ability to hover with his hair like a helicopter. But if he could control the gravity around him, why not just fly around with gravity control? My thought is maybe Rayman's name is more on the nose than we think. Rayman was created from Lums, which are described as tiny lights of magical energy. Rayman's entire being is made up of Lums. What if his limbs are made up of an invisible spectrum of light? This would explain why in Rayman Raving Rabbids he can wear pants and they seem to take the form of legs. Now I know what you're thinking, then how can his limbs detach and be lost somewhere like in Rayman 2? Well, what if the limbs are just held together by these light rays and the light rays can stretch out to a certain extent, but you can remove the object that they're holding in? I believe Rayman's torso, as it's the part that absorbs silver Lums, generates these fields, and this is how I propose Rayman looks under a different light spectrum. It not only fits with his name, but his lore, and would explain why his limbs behave the way they do. Because why can he control them when they're near, but not when far away? You'd think he'd be able to use his fist like a remote control device without a power-up, that is. So, in conclusion, Rayman has invisible arms and legs made of light that hold his pieces together and allow him to bend and stretch in funny ways. Or am I overthinking it? Throw your fist at that subscribe button and ding that noti bell to catch all my future uploads. Be sure to leave a like and a comment letting me know what you thought about this video. Until next time, have a good one. Jiggylookback!